I'm realizing before I get into this video that this video might come off as one of the most condescending or gatekeeping videos that I've ever made. And I don't like to do stuff like that because honestly, number one, I understand that this stuff isn't really that important. This is fictional stories that we all love and enjoy. But also, I think everybody comes at a story, whether it's a manga, a book, a movie, a TV show, whatever kind of storytelling it is, everybody comes at it with their own lens. Everyone comes at it with their own life experiences, and everyone gets something different out of the story. No matter what the author may intend within the story itself, everybody that reads it is going to come at it with a different life perspective and experience. And we're all going to interpret the story in different ways. And I don't necessarily think that that makes anybody's interpretation invalid in a way to where it's like you are allowed to enjoy it however you want to enjoy it for the reasons that you want to enjoy it with. However, I have noticed something that has been spiking up more and more within specifically the Berserk community. And I just want to talk about it and get my thoughts out in a video. And I think that I've maybe been holding back a little bit. And this video will be a little bit cathartic for me to kind of just get my thoughts out, and maybe cathartic for you as well if you have been seeing the same things or feeling the same way. Now, I want to start this by saying when I first got into Berserk, which admittedly is not that long ago, I know I've made a lot of videos on it because it is my favorite fictional series of all time, but I don't have any kind of authority on the series either, right? I'm just a fan that likes to talk about it. So I got into it back in like early 2018. And one of the first things I noticed when I started talking about it on the internet, on YouTube, is that Berserk had one of the chillest, calmest, most respectful, and intelligent fan bases that I had ever been a part of. And I was actually surprised. I was shocked because there's so many fandoms that are just so filled with toxicity and negativity and people hating each other and constant arguments and trolling. And this is the internet, right? That's what the fucking internet is. But Berserk seemed to stand out. And I think the reason that it stand out is because the kind of story it is. Even though there is a lot of gore and violence and fighting and nudity and all that kind of fun stuff, it is at its heart a story about persevering and struggling through impossible odds and overcoming just immense darkness and trauma within ourselves. And I think that's a theme that a lot of people understand and resonate with, even if it doesn't like specifically stand out to them. There's something about Berserk that is different from a lot of the other series that they've read. Also, Berserk does not shy away from adult topics and dealing with them in an intense, serious way. When it deals with the darkness of humanity, whether that comes to war or murder or sexual assault, whatever it is in the story, it doesn't shy away from it. Right? It shows you the true horrors that mankind is capable of. And on the flip side of that, it shows you how difficult the struggle is to persevere after going through those horrors. But then it also does show you the joy and value and love in the world that you can get to if you do continue to persevere. And I think putting it in this dark fantasy setting kind of tempers, you know, in a way the darkness that it's really trying to talk about, because if it was just modern day with modern people, it would just be so dark and disgusting you wouldn't want to even read through it, right? Having this kind of dark fantasy setting where there's monsters and sword fighting and knights and all this kind of stuff, you know, Skull Knight, you know, just looking badass constantly, it makes it a bit more palatable, and there's a great story within there as well. So there's a good story, good characters, great themes that a lot of people can resonate with. But I think the reason that a lot of people resonated with it from the get-go is because it's just hard to live in this world, right? It's hard to go through pain and despair and depression and all of these things. And if you see a character like Guts managing to still stand up and still pick up his sword and still retain his humanity, despite how much it might be better for him to just keel over and die or give in to his darkness or just say fuck the world and fuck everything and just go on a rampage, you know, stuff that maybe inside we've all wanted to do. You know, he manages to persevere and maintain his humanity in spite of that while still making a ton of mistakes. You know, that's why he's a great character, is because he's not perfect. He's done admittedly horrible things. He is not a superhero, right? And it's on a scale of dark fantasy, so it's very exaggerated and intense, but I think, again, we can relate to it because we have made mistakes in our lives. Maybe we've hurt somebody in some way, or were careless, or, didn't pay attention to how we were making somebody feel or what we did to them, and if we regret that and persevere and try actively to be a better person, taking accountability for that, as Guts does, as opposed to what other characters do in the story, that is something that we can really connect to. Lately, what was once, I feel, a very small minority of the Berserk community has gotten to the point where they are overwhelmingly vocal on pretty much every kind of social media site that you can possibly think of. And these are the people that wildly misinterpret the story, truly do not have the reading comprehension to understand what the story is trying to say, look at it on a surface level, see these shocking and offensive things that are in the story, and then on a surface level, try to explain what Berserk is, and try to explain and analyze the story without really understanding its themes and messages. And I understand, once again, that everybody can interpret things a different way, but when you are going so far as to wildly misconstrue what the story is trying to say, and then kind of like perpetuating that as fact, while also kind of tearing down the deeper meanings of the story, while trying to promote the fact that it is just nothing but rape and violence and all of this kind of stuff, at the same time, deeply misunderstanding characters. Like, there are scenes, with the Eclipse and with Guts and Casca. I think you guys know the scene that I'm talking about. Even more wholesome scenes like the Wounds chapters. People are just not understanding, and then they keep perpetuating what they think these things mean, while also simultaneously supporting and putting on a pedestal the character of Griffith and Femto and the things that he's done. And the thing is, like, you're allowed to like Griffith as a character. You're allowed to like him as a villain. Like, I love characters that are horrible people, I watched The Sopranos and Breaking Bad and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I love characters that are assholes, right? I love them. But there's a difference between loving a character for what they are and then trying to reinterpret a character for what he is. And it's also the fact that these fans are so vocal and so prominent that it really has gotten to a point where I don't even think it's 50-50 anymore. I think that the most of the fandom that I see online kind of have shifted this way. And it really, really makes it difficult for me to want to still, like, bask myself in the fandom of Berserk. That does not mean I'm no longer a fan of the series. I love the series. It's my favorite story. But I just get so burned out seeing these things over and over. Like, yesterday, I was just on a random Instagram post, and people, I saw multiple comments saying that Casca enjoyed it, during the eclipse. And then saw another one today on Twitter. We were having a conversation with some of my mutuals on there. But this is something that has been going on for a very long time. And I think that I can kind of pinpoint the shift to where this happened. And I think two very prominent things happened with this. And then there's more, you can kind of branch off more things that have happened too. But I think number one was during COVID time, during 2020, because I think that Berserk kind of exploded in popularity a little bit more than it had been during that time, because people were stuck indoors and we were looking for different things to read. And hey, Berserk has like 300 some chapters. That's a lot of things that's a lot of time to buy while you're trying to wait out this event. But I think it also had a huge boom when the passing of Kentaro Miura happened. I think because of the output and the outpouring of love and admiration that we all had when that happened, giving our condolences to Miura, and everybody posting about Berserk, everybody talking about what the story meant to them, how many, dozens and dozens of YouTube videos went up when he passed away with people talking about what the story meant to them and wishing the best for his family and loved ones and everything. Well, that really put it into the forefront of all these social media apps and everything. So people were seeing, what is this Berserk? The author passed away. What is the story? And it just kind of propelled it even more. I wouldn't say into the mainstream, but just as far as like anime, manga, Twitter, and all that goes. So I think that definitely had something to do with it. I also think the continuation by Studio Gaga and Koji Mori also played into it as well, because then you have this massive division within the fandom, because there are a lot of people that never wanted Berserk to continue after Miura passed away, and there are a lot of other people that wanted the story to reach its conclusion and to go in the direction that Miura wanted it to go. But now, no matter what happens, whether you like this continuation or you don't, there will always be animosity. It used to just be like, oh, I hate that the chapters take so long to come out. Now, not only is it that, but it's also every single time the continuation does something you don't like, you can say that that's Koji Mori's fault, that's not what Miura was going to do. And then every time the chapter comes out and it does something that you do like, you can be like, well, that's probably what Miura wanted, you know, in this one. So now you just come at it with this perception of everything you like is what Miura would do, and everything that you don't like is these guys are ruining Berserk, and, you know, it's just, it's not good anymore because of that, even if it would have been the same thing Miura would do. But because we don't know, and there's no possible way for us to know, it's always going to cause that division, and that is going to be there until the end of the series. And I guarantee the final chapter of Berserk will get just as much division and hatred and toxicity as the ending of Attack on Titan, if not more. Because being able to stick the landing of something that has been going for 30 years, not to mention the fact you don't have the original author, not to mention the fact probably a lot of people want the story to end with a big bloody battle between Guts and Griffith, you know, or want Guts to turn into an apostle, or want all this like shit that is adamantly not the story that we are reading. But when we don't get that, people are going to rage. And I am just not looking forward to that in any way. I also think there's a lot of people that just want to be edgelords for the sake of it. They see a story that has these, you know, dark depictions of what humanity is capable of and can make a joke out of it. How many Donovan jokes have you seen? And look, here's the thing. I'm not saying there's not a place in the world for edgy humor. And I'm not saying there's not a place in the world for a dark joke. And I'm not saying there are topics that can never be joked about. But it's the fact that it's the low-hanging fruit of the series. It's the fact that, yes, to tell Guts' backstory and the trauma that he's gone through, it depicts what happened to him when he was a child, when he was molested, right? This is something that is a core theme that runs through the series that Guts has to go through and other characters have to go through. And it is dark, and it is not sugar-coated in the manga. I mean, it does cut away. You don't see everything, right? But because that even exists, and because people can only read things in a surface level, and they're not looking at the entire story as a whole, they just see, ha ha, Donovan, you know, and it's just like, it's so easy to make a joke about, but none of these jokes are actually funny, and none of them actually have anything to do with the characters in the story themselves. They're just looking at a dark image and trying to make light of it, right? The same thing is true with Casca's assault in the Eclipse, and how many jokes about that have been made, and also the misinterpretation of what that moment in the story means, and also saying that Casca enjoyed it, and saying, you know, using evidence showing the way that her body is depicted in the story, not understanding that your body can have a physical sexual reaction to something despite you actually wanting it to happen. Like if you are being, this is really dark shit. I'm like trigger warning, I guess, but like if you're being stimulated in a sexual way, even if you don't want it, your body can also respond to that stimulation. It does not mean that you are enjoying what is happening, right? Just a horrendous misinterpretation. Another scene that is wildly misinterpreted is when Guts momentarily forces himself onto Casca. Now he does stop himself, but not before he injures her a little bit. That scene is not meant to be something that should be well digested. This is showing how far Guts has fallen. It is showing what a man who has dedicated the last 2 years of his life cutting himself off to all human emotion, going out seeking just revenge, doing nothing but killing, also not being able to sleep, not being able to take care of his health, not being able to take care of his mental anguish or his physical body, being weak, depleted, basically in that horrendous state of weakness, and having this very brief moment where he lets his darkness take over in a similar way. that Griffith did. But the difference is that this scene is not depicted as something positive. This is a scene that horribly disrupts Guts in many ways. It's the scene that makes him want to take on companions so that he can make sure there's other people there so that he does not harm Casca. Guts takes accountability for his actions. Guts does not justify his actions. Guts has not necessarily even been forgiven for those actions. If he is, it's going to have to be by Casca herself. But it's a scene that I think people just don't understand because they can't comprehend the amount of darkness and despair that Guts is going through within that particular moment and what would drive somebody to do that. I often say, like, imagine, you're having like a horrendous week and you're underslept and you're malnourished and you're very irritable. And imagine somebody that you like or love tries to say something to you, tries to talk to you, and you just go off on them. You just like say, something that you shouldn't say. You say something you regret. And afterwards you think like, well, why did I say that? What came over me? Why did I do that? Because you're so incredibly frustrated and underslept and just in a horrible position. Now, that and what Guts did are incredibly different, but you have to think about it on the scale that the story is being told. Guts is not living a normal life. He's living a life where he has to like fend for his life and fight off demons every single night. It's on a different scale, but it's talking about an actual human emotion and event that goes on within people where our darkness takes over us, and it's almost as if we have no control even over our own will, which is the opening statement that starts every single one of the anime episodes, because that's very much what it is. Causality is pretty much us making choices, even though we have free choice and even though we have free will. If we are pushed in a particular direction, we are more than likely to make choice A over choice B. And if you are in that dark of a state and you've allowed your mind to go to those dark, resource levels in order to do the things that Guts has done, it's not surprising that he would be in a moment like that of weakness and have that take over him. But the difference is that he was able to snap himself out of it. He was able to stop, and he was also able to recognize how horrible what he did just was. And that's why he makes this entire shift as a character moving forward, because he recognizes that he can't be left alone. He recognizes that he has to fix this. He recognizes he needs companions. He recognizes, that eventually as the chapters unfold after that, that he has to open himself up to other characters and allow himself to build this team where Farnese and Serpico and Isidro and all these characters come in. So it's a very important pivotal moment, but it talks about serious adult issues that most people, I don't want to say most people, but there's a huge section of the fan base, they just don't understand it. And as much as I try to explain it, and I've tried to explain it in videos over and over and over again, people just do not understand it. There's also all the themes about Guts retaining his humanity and how important that is, and how Guts, more justifiably so than almost any other character, should be the guy that would be willing to sacrifice people, right? But that's the point, is that he doesn't. And he continues to persevere without that. All of the theories of Guts using a Bailet to become a stronger, apostle. And I've gone over this many times before too, where that would go against the entire narrative of the entire series, and it would not make a goddamn difference anyways, because the God Hand is still more powerful than the apostles. We've had apostles try to oppose the God Hand, like Ganishka, and they're still compelled to the hierarchy. If anything, it would actually make Guts weaker against Griffith in many ways because of the hierarchy of the apostles and the God Hand, just like what happened with Ganishka, where he bowed in front of him. It's as if he has no control even over his own will. That is the theme. But anyways, after actually living through the eclipse himself and watching his friends die and what that meant to him, Guts would never sacrifice anybody. And that would never happen again. I understand it might be there as a red herring or a bait and switch, right? But it makes no goddamn sense. I also think a lot of people came into Berserk looking at it like a shonen, thinking that it's all about fighting and power-ups, right? Power scaling in Berserk is a futile endeavor. The God Hands are not meant to be power scaled. Like, who would win in a fight? So-and-so or the God Hand? To me, it's a stupid question because the God Hand are meant to live in a realm beyond our comprehension, right? They can warp reality. They can stop a sword swipe in midair. They can create a force field. They can send a portal to have a sword, go through it and then pop out somewhere else. Like, they're not meant to be power scaled. They are meant to just be beyond our comprehension. They live on a different level. They are astral, beings. They are the God Hand, right? It's not about being stronger than them. And, you see that all the time too. And they're like, well, what can Guts do to get a power up? Look, I'm not saying Guts won't get a power up, but I don't think it's not going to be like a physical confrontation that is capable of taking down the God Hand. It's going to be something deeper than that. And here's the thing too, and this is the part that's probably going to annoy a lot of people, but these are the comments that I keep seeing every single time Berserk is brought up. I either see the Casca enjoyed it people, or I see, Koji Mori sucks and the new chapters are awful people, and everybody is free to have whatever opinion they want, but I just get sick of hearing it, right? I get sick of seeing it, and I get sick of getting the same exact, questions all the time too. And what I get sick of too is the endless circle jerk of these conversations. Because no matter how much I explain it or other people explain it, these conversations go on and on and on and on. And to be honest, I'm not invested enough to have these conversations all the time, especially anymore. I feel like I've talked about the same exact scenes, the same exact events, the same exact themes of the story over and over again, and I don't know how else to explain how I feel about it. Maybe I am wrong, okay? I'm fully willing to admit I'm wrong when I am proven wrong. And if the story continues and goes a different direction and every point I made is incorrect, I'll own up to that and I'll say I'm incorrect. But I get so tired of having the conversations, and I honestly really just don't want to do it anymore. This channel was never a Berserk only channel. That's just the only content that the YouTube algorithm ever decided to pick up, or the only content that people decided to like, and that's what did well on this channel. But ever since the very beginning of this channel, I've talked about everything that I enjoy. All this manga. I've talked about all this manga. I've talked about Gantz, Devilman, Dragon Ball, Poon Poon, Hunter x Hunter, Vinland Saga, Vagabond. I've talked about all this stuff. And Berserk is the only one that ever really did well. And I have this kind of confliction right now because I'm just so tired of having these arguments and these conversations. And I've put out videos over the last 5-6 years basically explaining how I feel about every single scene in the manga. I don't know what else to say. I will always talk about the new chapters that come out. I'll always review them. And if I do happen to have a new theory or a new idea about something, I will definitely make a video about that. But I just get so tired of having these conversations over and over again when I've talked about them to death for the last several years. And so that's why I'm also trying really hard to focus on a lot of other kinds of content. I know that those videos aren't doing well, but that's what I feel passionate about right now. And I don't know if it's the fandom of Berserk that's ruined it for me, or just the fact that I've talked about it so much. And I do love it. It is my favorite manga. Don't get me wrong. It is my favorite manga. It's my favorite story of all time. In any medium. Books, novels, TV, movies, whatever. Berserk is my favorite. But I just don't want to have these conversations anymore. And I'm just so tired of seeing these shitty takes. And just this awful misrepresentation of the story perpetuated constantly on every social media source. And so, I don't know, man. I'm pretty much done talking about it unless there's new chapters at this point. And if that disappoints you guys and makes you want to unsubscribe, I get it. I get it. I get it. I'm not going to hold anything against you. But that's where I'm at with it right now. And I just don't want, I don't know. I don't want to be a part of whatever the fandom is becoming. I will still love it my own way, and I'm still going to talk about it in, future videos with new chapters and stuff, but I don't know what's happened, bro. I can definitely see a massive change from, 2019 Berserk Fandom to 2023 Berserk Fandom. It's different. And that sucks, man. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but this is a ranting video for you guys. It went on pretty long. I really intended it to be like 10 minutes, but I guess I got carried away. So let me know what you think in the comments below. At the end of the day, I understand it's not that serious. It's just people online in a fictional story. But I don't know. This had to be said. I'll talk to you guys later.